Thank you so much for
Yeah,
doing
thank
this.
you.
So for everybody
Thank you very much.
watching, Arunima Patel is a graduate of the batch of 2002. And since then, she's had a very eventful journey. I know I've really been curious about doing this because your career journey, ma'am, hasn't been, what a typical journey would look like, right? So you started out with investment banking. I think your last role before you set up your business was with Actis for 5, 6 years. And then after that, you set up something in the diagnostic space. So how has that journey been for you, and how did you land up where you are?
So Garima, I'll start with while I was in B school, I used to write business plans, and I used to submit for all of those contests. Never won anything, but this dream of becoming an entrepreneur was very much alive at that time. And then you get into your job, and being in IIMA, sort of unless you have a consulting career or you have a private equity did not exist in 2002, but unless you have an iBanking career, you don't consider yourself a success, right? So
Hmm.
I started my career with IBM. Actually, I used to sell software for IBM.
Hmm.
And then gradually from there, I said, okay, what is the path toward getting into finance? Because finance is a field I really enjoyed as well, not just the money that it brought.
Okay.
So from there, I moved to Prudential, which was insurance. And from there, I moved to private equity. And I had a great time in private equity. I loved the field. I
Hmm.
spent 6 years there. I really enjoyed the work, and that's what sustained me. Before that, it was 2 years into one job and then move, and 2 years into one job and move. But private equity was the only work that I really enjoyed. So I
Hmm.
sustained there for 6 years. But I wanted to become an entrepreneur. So I knew that that was my last job. And after
Hmm.
that, I will not work for another.
Hmm.
So when I left private equity career is when I started on my own.
Hmm.
Healthcare was a sector that I had started focusing on while I was in PE. So this,
Okay.
you have your network. It's easier to start. You already
Hmm.
knew, so I knew that diagnostic as a space has a lot of potential for somebody who's trying to do this in an organized manner. So
Yeah.
this all clicked. It was fairly straightforward that I wanted to do diagnostics,
Hmm.
and from there, and in fact, starting off also wasn't that difficult. So from idea itself to starting up, a lot of my ex-colleagues invested behind me, and
Hmm.
then that's how the business started. So that's been
Wow.
my journey.
Huh.
Yeah.
I'm sure there were a lot of, I mean, it sounds like such a fluid journey when you talk about it like that. But I'm sure there were points that, that changed the course of your life, right? So inflection points,
Yeah.
so to speak. What were some of
Yes.
those moments that, shifted your path towards where you are now?
Yeah. First of all, the inflection point came when actors threw me out. They were downsizing. So I was the
Okay.
first one. I was a very new mother. So
Uh,
a low hanging fruit in terms of, okay,
hmm.
anyway, she's not going to be productive. She's not going to travel much.
Hmm.
All of that aspect. So lost my job. And the next day I said, okay, I want to start on my own. So that was the
Oh,
first
wow.
inflection point. But before that itself,
Hmm.
like I said, I knew while I was in actors that that was my last job.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
did not apply anywhere in terms of any other private equity. In fact, while at Actis also, I had stopped looking out for the job markets.
Right.
I knew that I wanted to do something on my own.
Hmm.
And I had a baby. I had a baby in 2012. I started this company in 2013. So
Oh, wow.
2012, when I had my baby, I said, okay, I'll give myself 5, 6 years of a successful entrepreneurial journey. And
Hmm.
I will get flexibility. I'll be the boss, so I'll decide
Yeah.
what I want to do, how
Hmm.
much time I want to give in, how much travel I want to do, all of that aspect. So
Yeah.
again, it sounds very fluid, but those two were those two were the real inflection points in my career in
Yeah.
deciding the journey that I'm on
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. And I think so. It's very interesting that you talk about, how your first inflection point that you mentioned was losing your job and then deciding, even though you had like a 1-year-old kid, to start like an
Yes.
entrepreneurial journey. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I know a lot of people my age think about that. Okay, if you're in your 20s, this is the right time to do it because you will never be able to do it later. But it's interesting to
Yeah.
hear that you chose to take that step, having had the kind of constraints that people would think you can't do something that risky now. How was that
No,
transition?
you're absolutely right. In fact, after having the baby, I went back to the job also thinking that I'll try and survive a few years
Mm.
before I start something on my own, because new baby, easy money coming in, fine, why take chances?
Mm.
Um, but I, when the decision was thrust upon me, I had to then figure out my ways. A
Yeah.
lot of family support. My mom stayed with me for a real long time,
Mm.
taking care of my child. So that was
Mm.
one big family support.
Yeah.
Nobody in my family has ever run a business, but nobody ever asked me, why are you doing this?
Mm.
Especially for a new mother,
Yeah.
there was no doubt in anybody's mind that okay, fine, you've decided to do it, please do it types.
Yeah.
Husband was very supportive, so I remember we used to drop Kyra to the I used to drop her to the daycare and he used to pick her back, or vice versa.
Mm.
uh,
Yeah.
but I think that the most important aspect was that there was nobody around me who was doubting that this could be done.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
as personally, I had no doubts. I said, fine, I want to do this, so I'll find my ways of doing it. But if there was somebody even asking that question, I perhaps would have said, okay, maybe I'll wait 6 months.
Mm.
Maybe when she's 2 years or
Older,
3 years,
whatever.
maybe when she's going to school, I'll do this.
Mm.
So nobody asked me that question. I didn't bother thinking about it.
Yeah. So you, in a way, you had two babies. Then there was a human child, and then there was
Yeah.
also this company that now you've been,
Yeah.
I mean, running iGenetic diagnostics for 8 years now, right?
It's
So
been 8 years now.
how has that been? I'm sure 8 years, it looks completely different now from when you started out. What have been some of the interesting learnings that you've had to pick up along the way as a leader, as somebody who's got a team?
Yeah. The learning never stops, at least for an entrepreneur. My God, it's every 2 months I look back and I say, okay, I had to learn this also. um, See, initial parts of the journey is a lot of self doubt, right? You don't.
Mm,
In fact, I made tons of mistakes. I gave away
mm,
cheap equities. I
mm,
did not invest a significant amount of my money also behind my own idea.
mm,
Because you do have a lot of self doubt. I've never done this. I've never seen anybody who's done this.
mm,
Entrepreneurship is in vogue now. At that time, it was still not
yeah.
in vogue.
Yeah.
So there were not a lot many role models at that time. So
Yeah.
self doubt was big. In fact, a lot of my mistakes initially were because I
Mm,
didn't even, and I said, okay, fine, maybe that's how I need to do it, rather than saying, trust myself,
mm,
negotiate, and I can do it myself rather than relying on somebody else. So
yeah.
that was the biggest learning at that time, and that I cherish. I
Mm,
want to get into another field after completing this journey, and
yeah.
that field I have no idea about. I mean, I don't even know the language for example. So,
Wow.
but at this time I will trust myself. So that was a one big learning for me. That
Yeah.
fine, I didn't come from the field, but I had, you have a natural decision making power, and
Hmm.
you need. Ultimately, I had to do it myself any which way.
Yeah.
So
So learn to
I
trust
gave
your
away
gut,
money.
basically.
Yes. So I gave away money equity for people to do this for me, but they didn't do. So ultimately, I had to do it myself any which way. So that was one big
Mm,
learning.
okay.
Second big learning in the journey has been that see, you again have to learn your natural instincts, and women have this, I believe, better than men.
Okay.
We as women perhaps know ourselves better. So, what are our
Mm,
strengths? What are our weaknesses? And we are humble enough to acknowledge them.
mm,
So that as a leader plays a very strong role. What kind of a team
okay.
you want to build around you? That also,
Mm,
you have to come from. This is who I am. This is what I bring to the table. How do I complete the gaps that I have in the team?
mm-hmm.
And your leadership style comes from them. I had no. I didn't have any reportees. In private
Mm-hmm.
equity, don't people don't report into you unless you become a partner. I was
Yeah.
not a partner, so
Mm,
I this is the first time I had people reporting into me. So
mm,
again, trusting your natural judgment and gut plays a very strong role
mm,
in your leadership styles.
right.
Third aspect that I learned heavily is rely on people, and that's
Mm,
where IMA or any IM for that matter bring a
yeah.
lot of amazing network in place.
Hmm.
Um, when I was starting up, I had reached out to so Om happens to be a senior from IIMA. In fact, I met him before I
Okay.
started, so he gave me some
Okay.
really valuable insights.
Hmm.
And this is a network which is always ready to help. You know, I was setting up a
Sorry,
competitor
when you say
business.
Om, I'm not sure who you're talking about.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, Manchanda, he's the CEO of Lal Path Lab, one of the
Oh, got
largest in
it.
the country.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Okay.
So I reached out to him, and
Uh,
I met him, and I told him, look, I want to start something in Bombay.
hmm.
So he gave me really useful insights. He knew that I was setting up a, competition in that
Yeah.
sense.
Uh,
So that was, but this is a network which is always ready to help.
hmm.
And again, depends on personalities, but I've seen this men do this better. So they ask for, they reach out to their network very, very effectively. They use that.
Okay.
Women, I think we have to try to prove to the world that, I can do it. So we
Hmm.
don't reach out as easily as we should. So
Okay.
these are few things that I wish I had known. I mean, I learned a lot from my own mistakes. I didn't have to. I had
Uh,
other people who made mistakes to learn from.
yeah. Yeah. No, I think those are quite valuable insights, especially the last one that you mentioned about using the network as well, right? Having access to it is one thing, and then leveraging it
Yeah.
is a whole other skill that
Yes.
should be something that is exercised for sure. And how
Yeah.
has
So
life been
we
in the?
call this,
Sorry, you were
yeah,
saying.
I'm saying we call this networking, right? And
Uh,
when I was in corporate, networking for women always used to be our for sutta break, our drinks. It's not a bad term, right? We give that reason,
hmm.
that reason behind. Okay, I'm not networking because I'm not a sutta person or I'm not a
Hmm.
liquor person. That's not
Hmm.
networking.
Hmm.
Networking is really knowing who in your network and how to reach out to them and how to seek help
Yeah.
and when to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a very fresh take. Typically, you don't really hear this. You typically hear the other side, which you're saying, right? That you have to hang
Yeah.
out socially and you have to be going out and about with people to kind of make that network. But you're right. I feel like it's also that
Yeah.
once you belong to an alumni network, more often than not, people will be willing to help you if you only reach out.
Yes.
Uh, as you mentioned,
Absolutely.
right, your experience has been that with somebody who's actually helping build competition. So that's probably the best
Yeah.
example to have of that kind.
Yeah.
Great.
Absolutely.
And how has life been in the last year? I'm sure diagnostics as a space has become really hot ever since coronavirus and this whole situation has come about. How has that been for you?
So very difficult year, I would say,
Mm.
for the whole, for everybody actually, not just
Yeah.
people in healthcare. Um, uh, from healthcare side, it was a very different challenge. It was challenge of man management, material
Yeah.
management to ensure that you're able to help people in need. So our
Mm.
journey actually started. So COVID when it started in China, we got started working on it from January itself. So we, in sense, our readiness because we knew that this
Right.
could really spread.
Mm.
Lobbying to governments to saying that allow private sector to participate in diagnosing, treating
Yeah.
all of that stuff. And then when the wave hit and the lockdown hit and how people behave, and making sure that you motivate them to come, making sure that you deal with their fears, all of that
Hmm.
was very difficult because you've never seen that before.
Right.
As leaders, I had never seen that before. You're working with an extremely resource constrained environment where it's not
Mm.
easy to buy whatever you need to buy to run your tests.
Yeah.
Also manpower, the way they behave, and I've seen at that time really in that 2 months of lockdown, the personalities emerged, and some people showed natural flair of okay, fine, I need to take leadership positions in the company, and those are the
Hmm.
people who thrived. And then there were some people who completely buckled under their fear.
Hmm.
So we had to pull everybody up. We had to show a lot of empathy. As an
Yeah.
organization, we, in fact, so we did not, we didn't deduct any salaries. We ensured that people are taken care of, whether it's insurance, whether it's their medical treatment, whether it's extended leaves. So empathy played a big role in
Yeah.
managing the team at that time. And not just for our own team, but patients were in really bad shape. People were not getting hospital admissions, people were not getting dialysis, people were not getting chemos.
Yeah.
So we had to ensure that our service levels match up to support people. So
Yeah.
yes, that 2-3 months initially, I grew as a leader.
Right.
I grew as a leader. I learned
Yeah.
empathy. I learned how to motivate people.
Yeah.
All of that.
It's interesting actually that you started your your thoughts on COVID with um, managing human resource within the organization, and that speaks volumes about the kind of leader you are as well, right? Because you're talking about your own people and I mean everybody working at the company before even going on to consumers. Because I think you also do COVID tests, and that's also probably like a big
Yes,
part of now
it is a
revenue
big part
coming
of
in.
our work.
Yeah. So, I
Absolutely.
mean, that's why it's interesting that you speak more about how you can find a solution to the larger world scale problem, but at the core of it, it essentially becomes an OB issue, right? Any kind of leadership
Yeah.
role you have to manage. Organization
And
behavior becomes comes first.
I never I said right, during campus, finance was something that I was really passionate about. So corporate finance, I loved it. M&A, I loved all of those aspects. I enjoyed operations courses very much, but everything else I just pretty much slept through.
Yeah.
So when it's OB, HR, marketing, I slept through most of those. I wish I had attended some of that. So yeah, I had to learn with experience afterwards.
I feel like the OB department and all management schools always think this way. कि अभी you are sleeping now, but you'll come back to us in 5-10 years when you start becoming the case studies yourself.
I agree. I agree. That's karma coming back.
So you mentioned that finance was obviously your strong suit because that's where you wanted to be
Yeah.
till you started your entrepreneurial journey. What else about campus do you remember most? What was your the best go-to memory, and what do you kind of look back to?
Oh God, it's most of my memories. I was given my name starts with A. I was the
Yeah,
front bencher.
yeah.
I would sleep off, and then professor would have to wake me up. Was the and somebody would actually, my neighbor would try and wake me up because I would be falling off the chair. It was so bad. So those are the memories I have. But a lot of my memories are around friendships. I have developed such strong friendships from campus. It's we still continue to be some really great friends.
Hmm.
The people who took care that I get my breakfast, even though I would sleep
Yeah.
till the last minute possible. But there were people who were arranged breakfast for me. Uh, uh, and we took care of each other a lot.
Hmm.
So that remained with me.
Hmm.
I don't come from a very big family, so I
Hmm.
have maybe 4 or 5 cousins that we are, and we are very close. But taking
Hmm.
care of each other sort of came while on being on campus.
Yeah.
Because if we fell sick, there was nobody else around you. Your friend would take care, and vice versa. So that
Yeah.
was big part.
Yeah.
Because these friendships, we still make trips together.
Hmm.
That's one. Dealing with
Hmm.
stress. Before this, you had no idea what stress was, right?
Yeah.
So how do you cope up with it? And it's funny. I was talking to a very close friend of mine, and he mentioned that I learned from you how
Hmm.
never to take stress but give stress. So that I think that that came during campus. From there, I knew I was never the one who would take stress. I was most happiest when I came back on campus.
Hmm.
So that I guess I developed that skill there. That when it comes to stress, let's watch a movie every night to get this period out of your life. But
Hmm.
don't take stress, and that been extremely helpful for my whole career actually. Even
Yeah.
today, I don't take stress in that manner.
Hmm.
The kind of stresses that entrepreneurs can go through,
Hmm.
I pretty much deal with it. I would say better now because I learned how to deal with it then.
Yeah.
Um, the third aspect, I think, campus. We used to play. tennis, we used to play badminton, there was music, drama. That adds a lot. When I came there, it was like, oh, 2 years you need to study and you need to make sure. But then you
Yeah.
realize that, okay, you're not getting anywhere. Your CGPAs are really bad, so you might as well have a
Have
blast.
fun.
Have fun. So that remained even today.
Hmm.
I paint, I learn singing, I go cycling, I do running, and that sustains me.
Yeah.
Apart from running my own company, that sustains me. A
Yeah.
lot of people I see are pretty much focused in, I'm only doing this and nothing else. But that's another aspect that I picked up while on campus. That fine,
Hmm.
life goes on, and this is life. It's not going to happen tomorrow. You might as well enjoy.
Yeah. No, that's actually something that I feel like a lot of people learn on campus, right? Because like you said, you go to campus thinking that this is going to be two of my life, years of my life where I only have to focus on academics because I have to do this, and now everybody's going to be better than me. But I think along the way, people start relaxing, and you realize after first term gets over,
Yeah,
second term gets over, that okay, you can relax a
yeah,
little bit and do everything else that
yeah,
is also a big part of life.
yeah, absolutely.
Great. So, I mean, it sounds like anybody who goes to campus has very similar kind of memories, and that's great to hear. Like, I'm smiling as if I was in class with you, watching you sleep off, because I'm thinking of batchmates who used to do that as well. So, it's good to know that a lot of these things kind of
Oh
continue.
God, my second year I slept through the entire. I used to watch a movie every night, every single night, every single night. So
Yeah.
every single day I would sleep.
But yeah, that's I feel like everybody has these memories that are situated in the same set. And that's why it's easier to talk to people who've kind of lived through that life as well.
Yeah.
Uh, and ma'am, coming to the last segment of the podcast, which is when we put a gender lens on it. You alluded
Mm.
to some pieces when you spoke about it. I think one piece would be maybe when you had a child and you felt like, maybe that journey ended for you, having a job and then starting up your career as well. How was that for you? You also talked about networking, right? And how it you had to learn along the way how to leverage that network. Those are two things that, I mean, off the top of my head, I've got. But what are other things, or even elaborating on those that you felt were different for you?
Yeah. So let's talk about. See, I was a person who didn't. I'm an engineer, so and then from there IIMA, the I was always a 10%,
Hmm.
right? Always in private equity, I was one in 10 people, all 10 male. All my
Yeah.
bosses have been always male, so I was always a 10%, right? But I
Hmm.
said, okay, fine, I got it here. It's not because it took me a long time to realize that gender biases do impact careers.
Hmm.
So that was one big learning.
Yeah.
And then you have to but now I know that one has to think through from the place of their strength. What are
Hmm.
the strengths that women have? In fact, I've seen women are much better at risk taking. um,
Hmm.
I've seen, and that also came in during COVID time, right? My team, I saw women were coming saying, fine, okay, yeah, infection is there, but we have to also make sure that job gets done. And a
Yeah.
lot of men were not coming out of their houses. I've
Hmm.
seen women are much better at risk taking. So let's play
Hmm.
to our strength. Let's play to jobs which require you to take those strengths. And that's why I see a lot of women entrepreneurs now, and very successful
Hmm.
ones.
Hmm.
That's because I think I fundamentally believe that women are better at risk taking. Men still play safe. That's one. Second thing, women are still better at taking stresses, dealing with those again. So that comes true. Fine. What is the worst that can happen? Those
Hmm.
are us. Those are the areas that we have strength. We have strength in empathy. Again, we are much better
Yeah.
as dealing with human emotions, knowing what's going on in the organization. So you're better at your natural leaders in that sense. So
Hmm.
we have to start acknowledging that these are strengths that we women have, and play to those strengths. Um, in terms of see, in terms of how gender, see, one of the aspects that I feel that we completely lack is understanding what are strengths and acknowledging them. People around me, the smartest of the women, they always doubt themselves, and that's something that we have
Hmm.
to overcome. Because when you start acknowledging that, you bring a hell lot to the table, that you start demanding for it.
Hmm.
So you start
Yeah.
demanding your pay better than your peers if you bring something more to the table, right? And you
Yeah.
have to acknowledge that first to yourself. So that's where gender, I think we pull ourselves back because we don't acknowledge that we have some, we, you know, these are all softer aspects, right? I
Yeah.
don't have loud noise, I don't speak in very loud voices, so
Hmm.
maybe I'm not aggressive enough, we assume that, but that's
Hmm.
not the case. So
Yeah.
this is something that we only have to look back, and that it wasn't there for me personally. I didn't look at it till my entrepreneurship started, right? It's only last three
Hmm.
four years I started looking at myself saying, what do I really bring to the table, and then what do I demand.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's very important. I think the three things that you said were things that you learned in your journey, and the caveat around all of that, right? Which is you have to first acknowledge it within yourself. Till you recognize and are proud of the fact that you are who you are, you will never be able to. It'll always seem like an act to other people and to you.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
so, and ma'am, advice that you would have to women setting out in their careers, whether entrepreneurship or fresh out of college, starting their first job. What are things that you would want to tell them, and maybe your younger self, in a way?
I would tell them chill out. I've seen careers. We
Mm.
we passed out in 2002, perhaps one of the worst years. Recession had hit us. WTC had happened. All of that happened. People didn't come
Mm.
to campus that easily.
Mm.
I saw people starting their careers in baristas, and then I eventually moved into iBanking.
Mm.
So your first job does not define you. The kind of stress that I personally went through those 2 days of placement is just not worth it.
Mm.
That's one big lesson I tell myself when I go back. It's not easy. It's not easy when you
Yeah.
have your colleagues, everybody fighting for the same
Yeah.
jobs. Second thing that I've seen happen is go behind what you really want to do, right? Go behind what your calling is. It took me a while to get to an entrepreneur's journey. I had more confidence that one day I'll do it.
Mm.
So perhaps my journey would have started much earlier. I didn't have to
Mm.
go into IT and then insurance and then private equity, and then I should have just started
Entrepreneurship.
into an operations role, and um, honed my capabilities better. None of my jobs
Mm.
prepared me for what was coming as an
Mm.
entrepreneur. But if I wanted to
Mm.
become an entrepreneur, I perhaps would have started a very different. I would have taken a role that people did not aspire for, maybe in operations or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
that's the second thing that I would want to tell people, that have the goal in mind, that this is where I want to be heading,
Mm.
and the reason why you have that goal. I keep switching industries. But so like I said, I wanted to be in iBanking first. I would have been a completely miserable person in iBanking. This is not what I
Mm.
wanted to. So don't just look at the person sitting next to you say यार या तो बेन में या BCG में जॉब लगनी चाहिए नहीं तो हम we will get into it.
Yeah.
So वो
Yeah.
है.
Hmm. No, I think makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for doing this and sharing your life story and all these learnings that I am definitely going to take from this podcast. And I hope everybody who's listening in also sees a lot of value in your journey. Thank you so much for taking out the time to do this. Had a really good time talking to you, ma'am.
Same here, Garima. Call me Arunima.
Arunima. Yes.